Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's main event featuring brother versus brother. In the red corner, from Indianapolis, Indiana, an ER doctor, a Christian, a Republican, Dr. David Blank. And in the blue corner, hailing from San Francisco, California, a computer scientist, an atheist, a Democrat, Dr. Doug Blank. Now it's time for the Blanks to rumble!
Today is January 26, 2021, and we're going to talk about immigration right now. Hello, brother.
Hey, brother.
So here we are starting the, is this just the first week, the second week of Biden's administration? And he has on his list immigration as one of the things that he would like to tackle pretty early on. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you are 100% right. You look at all his executive orders that have come out right out of the gate. It seems like the majority of them have been to rescind or reverse some of the policies that Trump had in the last 4 years.
You think those have been largely good maneuvers, good for the country?
No, with a little nuance. So Trump had kind of had instituted and instructed his people for a while there to have a zero tolerance policy, which, as we all know, when you throw a big blanket over a difficult subject and you make it a zero tolerance, you end up catching a whole lot of people or circumstances that are kind of unique and should not be caught in that same net. And so it was effective, but not popular, and I think was harmful to families, certainly. And I think you're going to agree with that.
Yep. And I think that was probably, like you say, it was effective. That's what it was designed to do.
Right. So that's the question there is, what are your goals? And then what are you willing to do to meet the goals? And so what do you think are Biden's plans coming up?
Well, I must admit that I haven't paid too much attention to the immigration executive orders. But I mean, basically, making sure that DACA dreamers have a path forward and that they're not in risk, that they can go about living their lives and working towards what they were told that they could work towards. I think that would be a good thing to do. I think the whole idea of banning Muslims was a really bad idea. And, we shouldn't be signaling out a religion and putting bans on anything like that. What else is going on?
Well, I guess I'll clarify that last one. He didn't ban Muslims. He banned people from certain countries that were on Obama's terrorist list.
Right. I forgot. The first round was banning Muslims. The ban 2.0, very cleverly.
No, they were bans on countries.
Yeah, all
people
right.
coming from countries.
Sure, right. They just admitted in court that, yes, indeed, they were trying to ban Muslims, and then they got that thrown in.
But it wasn't a Muslim ban, no matter how many times you say it. It
Okay.
was a ban on people coming in from certain countries.
You're
so
right.
Biden undid that. That was one of his executive orders, was to rescind that. So I included, or we'll show you a little Pew Research chart right here. So this is, they were interviewing Hispanics and what were the things that were most important to them before the election. So they had a whole list of different things. So these were just some of the things that they found to be most important. And they were essentially the things that you had just mentioned. people who are here in the country need a path to citizenship. And that includes not only DACA or the Dreamers, but also their parents who have some of them been here for decades. Very important to Hispanics. And I think that's a doable thing. Trump had brought it up in his first or second year. And I know that Obama had brought it up during his presidency. So what do you think are the biggest hurdles to passing at a minimum something that allows Dreamers to become citizens?
2 words: Mitch McConnell.
No, I don't know that it's that one guy would have that much power. Well, I take that back. Either the leader of the House or the leader of the Senate does in fact have that much power.
Yeah, I mean, it was Mitch McConnell really blocked a lot of things from being voted on. He did something that was pretty clever over the last 8 years even. He wouldn't let things come to the floor. So even if some Republicans would vote for them, they couldn't, because it didn't get brought to the floor. So
Well, that's the same power that Schumer's going to have now. That's the same power that Nancy Pelosi has.
Sure.
So they control, if somebody introduces a bill, they assign it to a committee or they don't. So there's a lot of bills that people may submit that never go anywhere at all.
Yeah,
and that's the same in state legislatures.
But my point is that what Mitch did was he used that power to make sure that nothing passed that didn't have the full backing of Republicans.
And that's gonna be Schumer's modus operandi as well. That's what he has. If he had something that he was not in favor of and thought would hurt Democrats, but he thought that enough Democrats would be pressured to vote for it that it would pass, he's not going to bring that to the floor. He's not going to just bring stuff up to give it a fair vote, because that's not how it works.
But the other side is true as well. So what Mitch did was, if there were just a couple of Republicans that didn't want to vote for something, then they just didn't bring it to the floor. So that way, whatever they brought to the floor could have the full support. So, for example, let's say that a couple of Democrats, and we can probably go ahead and identify those Democrats, people like Manchin from West Virginia, that, he's a Democrat. He could easily be on. You probably can't even tell, maybe by looking at his voting record, whether he's a Democrat or Republican. But there are going to be things that come to the vote that Manchin is not going to vote for, but probably will still pass because a few Republicans will vote for them. And so that's the kind of situation we haven't been in for a long time, where we get actually some bipartisan support on a thing where it's mixed. And so depending on what state you're in, you might be for or against it. So that is actually a big deal. And I think it's going to let some of the things that have bipartisan support get through the Senate.
Yeah. So the Dreamers Act is, it is a big deal, not only to Hispanics. Most Americans support it as well. And I found one statistic that the majority of Hispanics that are in the country right now are not first generation immigrants. Most Hispanics in the country right now are second or third generation Hispanics. And so for them, people who were born here to become American citizens, to come out, seems like something that we will be able to find some consensus on. Like I say, with the Senate being 50-50 and the House still having a majority, it's on Joe Biden's agenda. So I think that should be able to come about. And like you say, I think there's plenty of Republicans that are going to be on board with that.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look back over the last 20 years, I mean, even George W. Bush had on his list of things that he wanted to accomplish was immigration reform. And that didn't go through because of the Republican Senate. So I think you're right. And it's not just good because people like it, Hispanics and Americans across the board, but it's actually makes a lot of sense economically.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. You put a lot of blame on the Republican Senate, but I'll tell you, Republicans haven't been in charge of the Senate for all that time. The Democrats had super majorities in the Senate and the House during the Obama years, but nothing got done on immigration. So it's there's a uh, it's not so straightforward as sometimes we like to think. Uh,
well, we'll see what happens with the filibuster. That's something that's going to be probably decided in the next week or two. How does the Senate need 60 votes in order to pass something, or does it need 51 votes? And depending on that, and I think if you look back over the Senate, even when the Democrats had the super majority of, well, they had the House, the Senate, and the presidency, they still didn't have 60 seats in the Senate, and that's oftentimes what you needed in order to pass something.
they did. That's how they got Obamacare passed. Is they had a super majority. There were no Republicans that voted for it, and it passed. And it had to have that 60% threshold. So they had the votes. But one of the other things that Hispanics found important, which I found kind of interesting, is to take in refugees from countries that they felt were unsafe. Uh, so that's something that has not stopped, but certainly has changed during the Trump years, in that all those people coming up from countries that are claiming refugee status, now they're stopped and they're spending their time in Mexico until they get their hearings.
Yeah, it would be nice to get back to the normal way that we deal with immigrants. And like you say, that there were, I don't know, something like 10 or 15,000 immigrants that were let into the country over a year or maybe more. But we used to allow, hundreds of thousands of people into the country. Um, so it'll be nice to get back to something normal.
Yeah, you call that normal, but if you look at that chart as well, Hispanics also considered, and in fact, it was in two different categories. They wanted increased border security, and they want increased security to decrease illegal entry. So uh, this is where I think you could put together some kind of bill where you're going to get bipartisan support, is that even Hispanics recognize that opening up the borders to anybody coming in is wrong. And there has to be some order, and there's a process you go through. And uh, so I will say, with the border wall and increased security that Trump has put in place, that gives Joe Biden some room now to kind of work through some laws to maybe make it a little less rigorous for people who want to get in, and at the same time to go through an orderly process. And that may require more money to just have more processing ability at the border.
Well, I don't know about less rigorous, but I think to make it more fair and easier for people that are just running for their lives and they don't have any paperwork. I don't know how much rigor you could apply to some of those situations. So it'll be nice to see a little bit more compassion and, like you say, nuance applied to the border, and to get the numbers up back to where we're used to.
Yeah. So I found it a little telling of just the realities on the ground that as soon as Joe Biden got inaugurated, there's anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 migrants that are coming up from Central America who have now had violent clashes in some countries. I don't think they're to Mexico yet, but officials with the Biden administration are telling those people, whoa, this is not the time, this is not the place, don't be coming up here just yet. So that tells me that in their minds, they want to kind of revamp the system, but it is not ready for that yet. And I think they recognize the terrible optics that's going to create if thousands of people show up now at the border when there's already thousands of people that are in the process of working towards getting into the country, that's going to overwhelm the system.
Yeah, well, the system's overwhelmed. I think we can agree on that. And it would be nice, finally, to do some reform so we can get that entire process worked out so people actually aren't just turned away largely, but there is a process, you go through it, and then you can fairly quickly, so you don't have to, stay imprisoned or even wait for very long periods of time, that you can find out quickly, efficiently what the result is.
Yeah, and I think that's where we can certainly find some points of agreement. Is there are certainly we're a country of immigrants. We welcome immigrants. We need to find a way for them to get in, but at the same time, we also need to maintain some order and have some restrictions in place. I mean, there are certainly security issues that we want to watch for, and there are health concerns of people that we want to not just let them out into the general public, but if they have health issues or contagious diseases, we do want to allow those people in, but we want to make sure that they're treated at the same time. We have the capacity.
David, you're sounding more and more like a Democrat every day.
No, I think that you're sounding more like a Republican.
Well, maybe there's hope then. If there are places like this that we can actually come to an agreement, we just hope that bubbles up to the House and the Senate.
Yeah, yeah, and but I think that the key word that we're going to have to get over is amnesty, and people. Like I say, there's a process that people go through. There are people who have come in the country illegally in the past, but at some point you have to recognize we're not going to send all those people back, and we need to find an orderly way to allow them to assimilate into our country.
Listen to you.
Yeah.
Listen to you. You should run as a Democrat.
Maybe I can be Joe Manchin.
Yeah, that's actually not too far.
At this point appears to now be the most powerful person in the country.
You may be right. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is a good place to come to stop an agreement on immigration. So,
yep. Sounds like a good place. I'll talk to you next time.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Adios.
Bye.